listening to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Are you ready to shake up your next orchestra trip? Kaleidoscope Adventures has been planning performance travel beyond expectations for more than 30 years. They know the best destinations and the most iconic venues for orchestras. Check out the Kaleidoscope Adventures link in the show notes below for fresh ideas and inspiration. And then let them do their magic. They'll handle all the details from start to finish, so all you have to do is enjoy the experience. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Dr. Charles Laux here. This is our episode number 93, and today's guest is someone who has been my mentor since my second year teaching 28 years ago, 1997. This man is probably one of the funniest conductor I've ever worked with, and just an incredible musician, conductor, teacher. And I wanted to welcome Dr. Mark Laycock to our podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Mark.
A lot of pressure, Charles, but thank you. And hard to believe we go that far back, but
yeah, back to the Las Vegas days. That was I was just a second year out of school, and opened up my lead middle school, and here comes this guy. I was like, well, he's going to come and visit you. I'm like, I don't know who he is, and holy cow! Like, just from off the bat, just blew me away, and I was like, okay, I gotta know this guy.
Well, and you were, novice teacher or not, you were amazing.
Wow.
At that stage, and clearly the career trajectory was already evident.
Well, I owe so much to my mentors, and you're definitely one that I am ever thankful to for all the advice and just inspiring things that you do with conducting and your work in the field and Midwest. So we're going to get into all that.
Excellent.
And so great to have you here. And it's probably, I should have had you definitely a long time ago. So I'm glad that you're here now.
Saying episode 93, Charles.
I know.
We need to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been great. So, okay, so tell us, and I know a little bit about your history, but not everything. So I'd love to hear, your musical training and when you went to school and your career, because you've done some amazing things, and just tell everybody who has not had the pleasure to meet you a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I grew up in the Puget Sound area, Puyallup, Washington. Went down to USC, Southern Cal, originally as a cinema television major.
Oh, I had no idea, but I can see that now.
Was going to be a film director, and had played trombone from fifth grade on, and music had always been an important part of my life. But really got to college and said, what group of people do I want to spend the rest of my life with? You got the film folks over there, and you got the music folks over here. And it just feels like I had just more of a connection, more in common with the music people. So kept the cinema television degree. You should see my home movies. Oh, my God, the lighting and
you have a studio like this, I'm sure.
Oh, my Lord. When, the birth of our first child, I made my wife do it 5 times just because the focus wasn't right. And then, went ahead and picked up a Bachelor of Arts in Music History at that point. It was kind of the easiest thing with the
right, without the
electives that I'd taken
and all that. Yeah.
But like you say, and creatively, I think that the two pursuits are pretty common. I mean, you're trying to take a group of people and hopefully inspire them, hopefully unite them, hopefully collaborate with them to some sort of artistic end. So it's a pretty easy transition, I think, from one to the other. Went to University of Nebraska Lincoln as a master's student. It was there that the orchestral thing kind of, backing up to USC, I literally stumbled into Jim Chellen's pedagogy class.
Oh yeah, well that's gonna do it right there.
And I had no idea who he was. And string teaching wasn't even on my radar at that time, but I knew, I had some inkling of, well, wanting to conduct and boy, needing to learn about stringed instruments. And so after a year with Jim, I was inspired. Oh my gosh. So speaking of mentors, he continued to be a mentor, all through his life.
I mean, just an amazing pedagogue and so many awesome ideas and just so many creative ways to talk about things that we would consider, I don't know, just normal. He just had a way about him.
Exactly. Yeah. And just highly intellectual. I mean, you could just have, and just a number of topics well beyond music, obviously wine and good food and philosophy. And I think what he and I had in common was as wind players coming to string teaching, I think we both have struggled with some of the same concepts, and I think that's why he resonated with me. Just being able to explain some of those things, maybe as a non-native string player, that he had to struggle just like I was.
Yeah.
But like you say, his way of explaining things, his way of looking at things, maybe a little bit off the beaten path, but just so effective.
Well, I think sometimes as a string player who's, bowed for 40 years, is like we take it for granted and then you get an outside perspective. I mean, I've learned so much from wind players about orchestral conducting, about working with strings, and it's kind of amazing because they just have a different perspective, And I don't know why the string teachers don't necessarily always have the same perspective of the wind instruments, but and maybe we do. Maybe we have some things that can help, the wind players. But I always find it just intriguing, and I'm always seeking out good wind conductors. I mean, I got to study with Richard Blatty at Ohio State, and
oh my gosh,
he I was just blown away by some of the things that he taught me and the way that he explained things. So that's awesome.
And I think I came around at the right time that Jackie Dillon used to say, unless you're anointed by rosin, you're not cut out for string teaching. But I think ASTA has been a leader in saying, we need good string teachers, we need good pedagogues. We can teach you the technical things.
Yeah.
And so, growing up, going to college in the 80s, I think it was good. It was good timing. And like you say, take those things from different disciplines. I took some choral conducting that I still use to this day. I think as fellow large ensemble conductors, we can learn a lot from one another, all disciplines.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of there are a lot of string teachers, I think, that sometimes have a closed mind about that, and are like, well, I'm orchestra and I'm not band and I'm not chorus or whatever. But if we keep an open mind, that's going to really help you get different perspectives and maybe bring something new to your teaching and to the way that you present something that will reach more kids. I mean, for me, it's all about how many things can I do differently to teach the same thing to reach everybody? How many different ways,
Right. And you think of Weston Noble at Luther College, and there's somebody who could do all three with equal excellence. And I mean, that's something that we can only aspire to. But I think he embodies, like you say, the possibilities of collaboration, of learning from one another.
Yeah, that's really great. So you did your master's degree.
We're in Nebraska, University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and Bud Emil, Robert Emil, the orchestra conductor at UNL, and I've never felt that his heart was really in the university orchestra, but he also conducted the Lincoln Symphony Orchestra.
Okay, and that's where he was.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
and so. It didn't take me too long to say, I want to, at least follow this guy. I would start attending rehearsals, and he was just incredibly gracious and patient to answer some really obvious questions now that I, look back on it. But I, would get as many scores as I could and just observe him, eventually studied with him. And I think he, maybe more than anybody got me on that path toward orchestral conducting and just a real kind of serious focus.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you are now, you have been at Wichita State for how long now?
Since 2006.
Okay. So
18,
yeah,
19
years.
years.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about that your program there and all the things that you're doing.
So I'm director of orchestras. It's the Walenta Endowed Professorship. So yeah, conduct the orchestra, teach conducting, mentor masters students, conducting, orchestral conducting majors.
And then you're out and about a lot, recruiting and
say, get out.
Yeah.
Usually in a nice way, but not always.
Sometimes they're just like, we're tired of you. Get out of here. Go work at a school.
There'll be weeks at a time where my key doesn't fit in the lock. But get out, do clinics, get out and, guest conducting, all-state, whatever you can find.
And you just finished being right here in Georgia, the all-state this past weekend.
Which is such a well-organized, well-run event.
They've got it down.
So impressed. And it's, 6 levels or something with string groups and full groups. And
yeah, there's a lot of groups. And they do an awesome job. And, it was you and Suhan. And, I mean, there are just so many great people conducting, too, this weekend. It was
a fun lineup. And and I appreciate Georgia gave us a chance to intermingle as fellow conductors. Not all states do that.
Right.
So we had a nice dinner together.
Oh, that's nice.
I had the 9-10 full orchestra, and to be honest, the group was matched the level of 9 through 12 all states that I've done in several.
Right.
I mean, just came in raring to go and well prepared. These students.
So good to hear that. I actually didn't have I don't think I had anybody in the 9-10 full group, but I had that's
must have had some playing pictures with Sue. I imagine.
Yeah, I had a bass player with Sue, and and then that's so great though. Yeah. But so tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're kind of seeing the profession, because you're on the Midwest Board of Directors, and that's you get to see a lot of groups come through, and you kind of follow some of the trends in music education. Can you tell us anything that maybe you're seeing, or I don't know, things that are good or that you're concerned about, in the profession?
I guess just a brief commercial for Midwest. I would just encourage folks from all over the country to apply, both as session presenters as well as bringing your orchestra to perform. We have such an amazing representation from Texas, and oh my God, we cherish those folks. But we love just to diversify the geography represented at the conference every year. So I know you've performed at Midwest and Georgia often. There'll be
there's always 1 or 2 for sure. Yeah.
In terms of trends, I guess the COVID, I feel like we're more or less back. Post COVID, kind of cycled back to where we were. I think if there's anything,
the attendance has come back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
It seemed like there was a lot of energy at the last Midwest.
Yeah.
It just felt really good.
I think, and just as human beings, we have such a short memory, such a short attention span that, all of us in the profession just need to remember what COVID felt like, what it felt like to shut down, what it felt like to be apart from your students, to struggle with some sort of online instruction. But, on those days where the drudgery gets to us, and we all have those days.
You got to remember what it could be.
You just have to remember just what we have, and just it's the best profession.
Yeah.
You talked about at the beginning. You talked about how we've been mentors and how we both have been mentored by amazing folks, and how now we try to mentor folks that are coming up. So it's such a great profession with just top-notch people.
Yeah. And my favorite part about Midwest or any conference really is just seeing the people that I don't get to see all the time, or even people I do see all the time, but I don't get to talk to in depth about anything, because we're
Right.
just in passing. So
You
for
have
me,
to go to Chicago. You have to go to Chicago to talk to Jeremy Wolstenberg. I'm sure.
right. Yeah. It's exactly that point. And for me, it's just a way of sharing ideas and getting new ideas and just connecting with people that you don't get to talk to every day. And there's a lot of teachers out there, and some people listening may be in this situation where you just don't have a whole lot of colleagues. So when you go to Midwest or ASTA or anything like that, it's just refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll be at ASTA this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you presenting anything this year?
I am. Jim Palmer and I are doing a post-conference session on full orchestra.
Oh.
He's using his Columbus Youth Orchestra as a demonstration group.
Amazing. Okay.
So Jim, this is all Jim. Jim invited me. I jumped on board, and I hope people. I'm exhausted on Saturday at noon. I hope people will be willing to stay. There's a little bit of obviously we're going to talk pedagogy of the full orchestra, peculiar to the full orchestra. But then there'll also be a chance, kind of a conducting workshop. Folks can get up on the podium, and Jim and I will coach them both in rehearsal techniques. So
yeah, I remember there was an ASTA conference. I don't remember when it was years ago, and I came up and I was one of the 6 or whatever people during that session with you, and I just remember I left. I was like, holy cow, I'm doing it wrong. Or, one is down. Yeah. No. But it was very refreshing, and just to be able to, you got to put yourself out there a little bit, and it's sometimes challenging to do. And, especially, amongst your peers, but I was so thankful that I did. So, I'll just give advice to people out there. Just, if you want to get better, you want to grow, you do have to put yourself out there, and sometimes it's challenging and a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, like, it's worth it, especially if you have great people helping you. And
there's a little bit of risk involved. I mean, I can speak for myself that I promise to be positive and encouraging. Jim Palmer, there's a lot of rage, a lot of anger. So
he will yell at you.
Exactly. There may be just a string of profanities. I'm kidding. So Jim, makes me look like a student film. He's
oh my gosh,
amazing.
The two of you guys, I mean, that's just a dream team right there.
We want to make it a very constructive experience for anybody who's brave enough to, like you say, take that risk and to get better. And his youth orchestra comes highly recommended.
Yeah, I have not heard them in person, but I've only heard about them, and I've only heard awesome things. So
it should be a good session.
Yeah, fantastic. At your school, you have a Master's of Conducting program.
Yes.
Do you guys have opportunities for people to come and do a degree, or apply to do a degree? When does that usually happen? Is it already for next year? Is it already set?
We're a small enough school, and to be honest, in the 18 years I've been here, I'd say probably half and half, that I'll have a student, I won't have a student. I purposely keep it small, because we do have essentially the one symphony orchestra,
right?
And I want a student to have ample podium time and coaching. I think there might have been 1 or 2 years where we've had 2 students, but yeah, I mean, we really look at applications year round. I would say, we're kind of getting close to would need to make some final decisions for the fall, especially because we want to make sure that the person's supported with an assistantship, some financial aid. So that would need to be set up pretty soon.
Pretty early, yeah. Well, I will put your contact information in the podcast description. If any of you are interested in Wichita State and working with Mark, maybe in future years, just definitely reach out to him. It would be an amazing thing. I have 3 degrees, but I was like, I always want to go back and get like a conducting degree. Because,
exactly.
It's like I took conducting undergrad. I did some work during my master's a little bit, and did some small things during my doctoral work. But I would just love to have a whole bunch of podium time. So and be able to just focus on score study. And, can you, and I always feel like, my conducting, I'm always working on it. I'm always thinking about, and I'm always a little self-conscious, but could you tell us maybe some of the things that you see in most or a lot of educational conductors, some things that you see that, people probably need to work on or people need to think about? What are some things that you might, I don't know, put out there as the big problems in educational conducting?
That's a great question. And just thinking back to my own, conducting workshops that I attended, and I kept hearing less is more. And we have I conduct the 2-semester sequence of instrumental conducting here, and the second semester folks we just met this morning at 11, and this young lady, she's fantastically talented, very serious about conducting. And I at the end, tried to give her some advice and said, if you've ever been to Times Square, it's a place where you're just bombarded with information, much of it valuable, but it's just hard to focus on one thing, to really connect with one thing. And sometimes it comes from good intentions, but we want, here's the dynamics and the articulation, and we're cueing and we're doing that. And so less is more really helps at times, just to focus on one concept. Let's shape that phrase. And maybe not worry about dynamics until later. Or, the trombones have missed this cue for the last 3 rehearsals. I'm going to make sure that I'm with the trombones at this particular time. Don't be afraid to just pare it down to a single communication concept.
I like that idea. Yeah, that's great. And how about in the physical gestures part? Are there other things that you see people are doing? Not like you're doing it wrong, but some things that maybe would be helpful for the everyday, teacher who's taking conducting during undergraduate, and that's all I took, And it's crazy because we take so little conducting in undergraduate, and then we get out in the field, and that's what we're doing the whole, like, a lot,
Right. I think, and I guess tangentially related to less is more.
Sure.
Is just you're feeling obligated to give every beat with equal strength. And I think there are times, especially once kind of that motor rhythm,
with the students start becoming autonomous with their,
Students can do it. They can keep a steady beat. They can keep a steady pulse. And we can kind of minimize the right hand, even in forte. We can minimize the right hand and then let the left hand do some shaping, some coloring, some communication. Mirror conducting, I think I see a lot. Myself doing it as well.
Yep.
So you're taking away 50% of your communication potential by just doing the same thing with both hands.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. This has been so great. Let's see. I had more questions about.
I just want to make sure you plug my OnlyFans too. I want to make sure I'm trying to build my OnlyFans.
You did that to me at Midwest when you introduced my session, and I was like, I don't know how red I was, but holy cow, that was quite funny when you did that at Midwest, and you. So. You use humor in your conducting and in your, and I don't know. I mean, is it just something that you just comes naturally to you, or do you think of all these good jokes all the time? But tell us how that impacts your teaching and the student experience and their reactions. And
well, honestly, it wasn't until the last maybe a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, that I've really tried to put a philosophy behind it. Because I'm dead serious about what I do.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious about music. As a musician, I can't hold a candle to the composers that we're trying to represent. But I try to separate that from taking myself seriously. So if I can be focused and serious about the art and about teaching and about the students in front of me, and yet let myself just be not necessarily a court jester, but not so wrapped up.
Lightheartedness about it.
Yeah, that the ego isn't so big that it can't.
Well, I think that's what makes you so appealing and so easy to work with, it because you have that lightheartedness about you, and you don't go up and you're not like with everything you do. And when you've worked with my students before, I mean, there's things that go over their head. They're like, they have no idea what's going on. And I'm laughing my butt off in the classroom,
Right.
and the kids are like, what just happened? And then sometimes they'll catch it. It just depends what it is. But it's always wonderful to watch you work. And every time I see you work, it's just, I get a new joke, one, but then two, it's just the musicianship part of it. One of my things I still use is I think you like when a musical line goes from one section to another section, you're like, pass them the biscuit or pass them the muffin or whatever it was. That's a huge thing, and I use it a lot. Is we need to communicate that way, and just some of the communication things that I've gotten from you have just been awesome. With musical communication and gesturing, but also just that expression and phrasing and you name it. I mean, it's been so cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the joy of being a clinician. I mean,
yeah,
the director has done the work, done the nuts and bolts, rolled up the sleeves, and you can come in and not I rarely talk about intonation unless there's something that maybe I can help at this one particular spot, but hopefully to give ideas.
So I guess that could lead to a next question is, what are some of the things, the experiences that you've had, like you've conducted all over the world? What are some of the things that have been just like, have you ever gotten to a situation where you're like, what am I going to do? Like they're like really, 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 really prepared. Have you ever had that? I mean, not that you couldn't find something,
right.
But have you ever had that, like that moment where it's like, wow, what am I going to go back to your hotel room after the first rehearsal? Like, what am I going to do next?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't with my own group, but it was, I think the example that comes to mind immediately is working as a clinician for the National Orchestra Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say it was in Atlanta. I think it was in Atlanta. And Christopher Selby's Charleston School of the Arts.
Jeez, yeah.
And of course, they're so remedial that, where do I start? My gosh, let's have some rhythmic structure here, people.
Hold your instrument upright, right?
Can we have a tonal center?
We're being very sarcastic here, everybody.
I'm extremely sarcastic. So it was.
If you haven't heard Charleston School of the Arts, Christopher Selby, probably the top or one of the top 5 programs in the country.
Easily.
But just so musical, so entertaining, just through the musicality. The kids communicate. They're breathing, they're moving, they're like they know the music backwards and forwards, and they're wholeheartedly into the music. Anyways, that's my side for people that don't know what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And thank you for filtering the sarcasm.
Sorry.
No. And they just performed at Midwest this past December, and it was phenomenal.
I thanked him. I said, thanks for making everybody else look bad, Chris. So
this was NOF, and they had just played Adagio for strings, and it was as beautiful as you can imagine. And that piece, I mean, there are a lot of different interpretations that are equally valid. So I tried to talk about color. I tried to talk about some possibilities, not even to say, this is the right way, but just to say, well, what if we did it this way? And of course, his kids were so well prepared, and
they could do anything you asked them to do.
They're happy to.
Let's take it up a half step, and they would just be able to do it.
Exactly. Key, but
it would be. It'd be a little more fun. But
so that was that was probably the one time that really sticks out. That geez, what the heck am I going to do? And Chris, he may be being gracious, but Chris still kind of talks about that clinic and says, it's fun, and the kids responded. So hopefully they got something out of it. But amazing ensemble.
It really is. And then maybe going to the other side of it, have you ever gone to do an honors group and they just were not prepared at all, and then you're having to like remediate and hope that it stays together and hope, I mean, I'm sure that you've had those experiences too.
Right.
Or at least somewhat.
And again, probably as a clinician.
And please don't name any schools or
more often than, Alpharetta High School, probably about 5-6 years ago, was just made some changes there, thankfully. Again, as a clinician, being invited into a school and just sort of, where do I start? And I think for me, it's always with rhythm. If there is not rhythmic order and regularity and consistency,
that vertical alignment, I
mean, you can talk tonal center all you want, but until the notes are aligned, so that's usually the first mode of attack. If things, a triage, a bleeding, breathing, broken bones, I usually go straight for rhythm.
That's your breath, right?
I can do anything.
Yeah. Okay.
I can do a little CPR for these guys.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And so you've been, I know that your bio says you visited Australia several times. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience going there?
I kind of, I didn't use the time well because I just sat in my hotel room watching the toilet flush the other way.
The other way around.
I was fascinated by that.
When I got to go to Ecuador, there was this like place you could go, and there was the line, the equator, and you could walk on it and do this and that. And then they had this like sink basin you could put on this side, and they'd dump a bucket of water, and it would go this way, and then you go on the other side of the equator, and you dump and it was the coolest thing. Like it worked. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I also could balance an egg on a nail. That was exactly, you could balance a raw egg on a nail, and it would balance.
Yeah.
You can't do that anywhere else, but it would bounce. Isn't that weird? Yeah. So anyways, but okay, besides the toilet flushing, tell us more about Australia.
So, I think 4 visits to Australia, maybe.
Wow.
Just great people down there. Just like in the States, just a close-knit string teaching community. It's a huge country.
It is.
But a small, close-knit community of teachers and just eager to learn. Apparently they don't know much about the United States because they invited me. But
they know a whole lot about it if they invited you, my friend.
I think the biggest thing is just what they can accomplish with so little rehearsal time. Because I think in most of the schools, it's not part of the school day. It's not part of the curriculum. So they're rehearsing after school. They're rehearsing maybe once a week. Some of the programs, and yet just achieving miraculous.
Maybe it's because they practice a lot.
It could be.
Yeah.
I'm also impressed with how they promote kind of native Australian composers. So there's a good kind of loyalty and dedication to promoting indigenous voices.
Very cool. Neat. So at taking a different step, going back to Midwest, what are some of the things that you do as a board member? I don't know if it's a year-round thing or is it kind of seasonal? But can you tell us a little bit about your role on the board and all that you have to do? Well, there are 4 of us on the string committee, I guess. I think the board is maybe 18, 19 in total. But Brenda Brenner and John Clinton and Sue Hahn and me. And it is year round. We get along so well. Great team.
It's a great team, and we complement each other very well. I think the different strengths as they're kind of distributed among the 4 of us. It's a year round commitment. We're getting ready now. There's a meeting at the end of March, which, they're all big, but this is kind of the big one where we listen anonymously to recordings that have been submitted. And
those are due like in a couple days from this recording, which is March. We're on March 5th right now. So I think it's like March 7th they're due, like in 2 days. So this will probably not air before they're due, but
right.
Yeah.
This is crunch time. And then same thing, we'll go through the
all the clinics,
the clinic submissions, and try to come up with. We've got a template, and we think, it'd be great to have a low string, great to have an upper string, kind of just pedagogy. We want to have some sort of conducting in there. Definitely want to have some rehearsal techniques, alternative styles, some SEL, and making sure that underrepresented folks are included.
Yeah. What are some of the big things you look for in clinic applications for those that are thinking about doing that, or if they're not doing it this year, they would have already done it. But for next year, what are some of the things that you look at besides the diversity and upper and lower strength, that kind of thing?
Exactly. We want to make sure that a person. I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but we certainly prefer folks have had some experience at Midwest, that they've at least attended, so they know kind of our population, our string teaching population. Excuse me. We would much prefer that you've presented the session somewhere else.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was a positive or a detriment. Like, well, they have already heard it in Texas. They're not going to want to hear it,
Definitely not, because, it's such a wide community that, to do it up in Chicago, even if you've done it down in Austin or down in San Antonio, I should say, or down in Tampa. Because, that just shows a record of success that, that some of the state agencies have endorsed you, and you've had that presenting experience. And my gosh, you learn so much. I've got a new presentation. I present it once. Oh, this worked really well. Let me tweak this a little bit.
Oh, I'm always tweaking mine, even though I presented, some of the same ones, 10 times. It's, I would say it's never the same twice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Organization. Okay. We do ask for a handout, I think, as part of the application. It doesn't have to be a finished product necessarily, but just to give us an idea that you have a real strong focus of what you want to present.
Fantastic. Well, I'll say, having presented at Midwest several times and performed there twice, it's a life-changing experience, and it's just the most appreciative audience, and also critical audience, but people are there to learn, and every time I do a session, I'm always worried. I'm like, I think people are going to know everything I'm talking about, and then people come back and they'll give me a comment or send me an email saying thank you for this, or okay, I did okay. So
exactly, and there's such a wide range of teachers. I mean, you've got your Shelley Bergers and your Chuck Christianaries who
heard everything,
retired, and they could be doing the session themselves. But then you've got novice teachers and even kind of mid-career folks that are coming back. They want to improve. They want a new perspective, some new ideas. So
and a lot of those teachers who are non-string specialists that are making the switch over to orchestra, there's a lot of that going on, and especially a lot of band folks are realizing, like, strings are where it's at. We don't have to spend the Friday nights out at the football field and this and that. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mark,
go ahead. I've always wondered. Sorry, and there may be a dissertation out there already, but a great dissertation topic. Because we feel like the orchestra student is just a very special kind of personality, very special kind of focused individual. Is that the result of teaching strings, of learning strings, or is that the kind of student that's attracted to strings in the first place?
There has to be some research on that. I have a personal philosophy, anecdotal, of course, that when a kid signs up for band, chorus, orchestra, they're kind of just built there. And there's some that are, there's some overlap. There's some kids that sometimes do both or whatever, but a majority of the kids I find are just like, these are orchestra kids, and these are band kids, and these are chorus kids, and they just kind of flock that way for me. That's what I've noticed, at least.
Kind of self-select.
It's a personality. It's sometimes, again, exceptions everywhere, but I think the general consensus for me is that they're kind of built that way. They're just kind of geared that way. And, there's a lot of middle school teachers out there when they're like recruiting for kids and they're like getting nasty and they're fighting for kids. It's like, just let them just present the materials and see what happens, and generally there's a good distribution at most schools that, And kids talk too, and there's a lot of reputation from the teacher and the program that sometimes takes kids in different directions. But at the same time, I really think that they're kind of built that way. That's my philosophy, though.
I would agree. That sure makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's one of my frustrations with school districts where you look around and say, okay, they have band, they have a great band program, they have a great choir program, and yet there seems to be resistance to establishing strengths. And I hate to say it.
Starting a program, right?
It comes from band directors sometimes who feel like they're going to lose students.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, it's a different student that is attracted to strings. All boats rise with the tide. I mean, to have the equal quality of the three disciplines, there's nothing like it in a school, in a building.
Right, to be able to have that diversity and and the other like when I was just down in Texas at TMEA and presenting there, it's like the mariachi thing is huge. It's like great, that will work everywhere, but for there it works great in Texas. Seems like and
right.
Other places. We were talking about show choir in the Midwest show choir is like the big deal, but it's not a big deal everywhere. So
right, it's not going to take students from another students from another program. Yeah.
No.
Don't need to worry about that.
There's plenty of students to go around,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark, this has been fantastic. I just appreciate you taking the time to come on. I know you're so busy, and you got a lot going on, but it's really appreciative that you're here. And I know hopefully the listeners feel the same way because you're just awesome. And we appreciate all that you've done for me and for the profession over the years. So thanks for being here.
Oh, Charles, thank you. I can't think of a better way to spend an hour and this incredible resource among many others that you've given to the profession. Thank you.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. So everybody, for the Orchestra Teacher Podcast, episode number 93. Sorry, Mark, taking this long to get you on here. I know. We will see you all later. Thank you for tuning in. For resources and more information, visit orchestrateacher.net.